We are live. A very good evening, everyone. I hope everybody is doing fine. We are back from, the festive season, and we are back with yet another very interesting session of Big Bulki Pathshala. So, the topic for our today's session is demystifying verbal for all undergraduate exams. So, in our today's session, we shall be covering all the exams that we cater to at the UG level, it being CUET, it being IPMAT, GIPMAT, it being Clat, and much more. So we specifically will be focusing on the verbal section for all these different exams. I have a very special guest with us today, and I will introduce him to you people in a while. But before that, let's talk a little bit about Clat. Clat is the upcoming exam for both UG and PG, right? It is supposed to be held in the month of December. So I am pretty sure all of you would be, pulling up your socks and preparing for the exam. So we will have a little brief discussion about the Clat exam as well, about the verbal section in the Clat exam. Talking about CUET, I hope you all are already aware that the third round for the CSAS process has been rescheduled, right? And I hope all of you are keeping yourself updated with that. And I really hope by now all of you would have received your desired colleges, the preferences that you must have filled. I am hoping that you all would have gotten your desired colleges by now, right? For the people who are planning to appear for CUET 23, guys, I hope you're following our sessions regularly, because in every UG section, we do mention about the CUET aspect. We mention about the things that you need to keep in mind about the CUET exam, because it is the new kid in the UG market. It is a new exam that has been launched for admissions into the Delhi University and other central universities as well. The exam took place for the very first time this year. And probably by next year, we are expecting a couple of few changes in the exam pattern, or maybe the universities associating themselves with the CUET exam. And of course, we at HitBullsEye will keep you updated with each and everything. So don't you worry about that, right? But make sure that all of you have started your preparations for the CUET and other undergraduate exams, especially the students in the 12th standard right now, or in the 11th standard, depending on your uh, method as well as your aim for preparation. So that was a little pep talk from my side. Let me now introduce the guest for the evening. We have our very own verbal faculty from HitBullsEye. Mr. Ankur Grover is here with us today. Hello, sir. Welcome to the
Hello,
session.
thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
So, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good as well. Excited for the session.
Yeah,
Okay, so, sir, let's begin with the introduction. Why don't you tell us something about yourself?
like I have been teaching for many years and I have been also into journalism, right? For the past 12 years, I have done both. And now I have decided to go for teaching full throttle, right? I'm no longer into journalism, but it has given me enough exposure to language, to objectivity, and to different techniques that are implied to impress the reader. So it has helped me a lot to know the intricacies of language. So in a way, I have learned quite a bit through journalism and through teaching.
Right, right. So, how was your experience working as a journalist, sir?
It was a very good experience. Like every day, you would get different also sorts of stories from crime, from culture, from tradition. Think of anything from politics, from sports, right? So all kinds of exposure. There would be deadlines. There would be a lot of pressure to meet the same kind of pressure as you see in your exams, right?
Right.
You have 2 hours, even we had 2 hours. So I have handled that kind of pressure. So I know what students go through.
Right, right. So, sir, why did you choose the verbal as a field to teach, or as a field of your expertise, if I talk about the preparations for different exams?
Verbal. The reason is that I have done my master's and my MPhil in English literature,
Right.
and then I was a senior sub-editor at the Tribune,
Mhm.
again an English newspaper. So obviously, verbal would fit best, right? So that's why I chose verbal.
Right, right. So, sir, I am pretty sure you must have always had a passion for teaching because if I talk about myself, I myself used to teach earlier, and I also coincidentally used to teach verbal only. So I can understand that the people who do teach verbal, they need to be emotionally attached to the subject only. Then they can go ahead and teach it. So, is it the same thing with you also?
Yes, it is. You must be a voracious reader, and you must have a hunger for more words, hunger for learning new expressions.
Right.
I think only then you can be fit as a verbal teacher.
Right, right. That's true. I agree with that. Also, I quite honestly feel the people who are actually associated with the verbal aspect, the people who teach English, they always have a very distinctive personality. Not praising myself, generally speaking, they have a very different personality as compared to other people. They are more liberal. They
So
are
I'll take that compliment on me, right?
both of us, both of us. Okay, so sir, how has your experience been teaching the verbal subject to the students, and what are the competitive exams that you've been catering to through the verbal aspect?
Like I have taught students, CAT students, IPMAT students, CLET students, and then students appearing for GMAT, ZAT. So
Mhm,
I have taught undergraduate as well as graduate students. So
mhm.
all along, the experience has been quite well. As students are these days are bright, they question me and I let them. So it is always an interactive class. It's always a dialogue, not just a monologue as it happens in colleges and universities.
Right, right.
You just speak for an hour or two and come back, and students.
Right, right. That is always that is our motive at HitBullsEye. We try to keep things as interactive as possible and not make it a lecture wherein one end speaking and the other end listening. We try to keep it as interactive, as communicative as possible.
Yeah,
And
I have never used this word lecture. I always use this word class because I don't connect with this word.
right, right. I understand, sir. I know. Okay. So basically, in our today's session, sir, we will be focusing on the different UG exams that we cater to at HitBullsEye. And of course, English comes across as the challenge of these exams, whether I talk about CLAT or I talk about IPMAT, I talk about SET, and all these exams, they all have one common factor. And of course, you have maths, but then again, I come across a lot of students find English as an extreme challenge because my take on this entire situation is I feel because English is not our first language, it is something that we have inherited through our schooling system. It has been mandatory subject since our nursery. We've been taught. So again, there is always that gap in communication. Like whatever, if whether you're talking or reading, we tend to translate the content in our mind to our respective mother tongues, and then we put it forward and we try to understand it. So I think that acts as a major hurdle for a lot of students, and they find English to be extremely challenging. So in our Big Bulki Pathshala, the sessions that we conduct, we try to keep verbal very important and a core part of this because students do struggle with the English portion, right? So another very important thing, until and unless you've not studied from a convent school, you don't get an exposure when you're actually interacting with people in English or talking to them in English. So it comes across as a challenge. So in our today's session, the name suggests demystifying. We'll try to contemplate, we'll try to understand the role of English in various exams. So let's begin with CLAT. We are closer to the CLAT exam as compared to the other exam that's supposed to be held the next year. So, sir, according to you, what is the major topics that a student should prepare in the VARC section for the CLAT exam?
I think CAT usually comprises RCs mostly, right?
Right, right.
So in those RCs, there are different kinds of questions.
Mm-hmm,
Questions can be based on vocab, questions can be based on inference, on conclusion.
mm-hmm,
But the bottom line is that it is reading comprehension. So comprehension is understanding.
mm-hmm,
So understanding, Vagisha, as you have mentioned that there are people who have done their schooling from convent educated, and there are others who are not so fortunate, maybe from schools or so. But I suggest that don't feel disappointed, not a convent educated student,
Mm-hmm.
because understanding that is not that doesn't have much to do with which school Fred or studied in, right?
Absolutely right.
So
Mhm.
understanding, you must have an approach, the right approach,
Right.
right? So
Right.
any student can have that. It's just that you have more exposure to language in a convent school,
Mm.
and you have less exposure to language in, say, a government,
Right.
right?
Right.
It is generally believed, right?
Right.
So never get
Mm.
intimidated, and it is okay. Now it's about understanding. If you understood, right, first sentence to the you can 80 to 90% of the questions within a minute,
Right.
right?
Right.
Even the vocab, that is mostly contextual,
Mm-hmm.
right? Context. You have to situate it,
Mm-hmm.
right? The article or the RC passage,
Mm-hmm.
it is on politics, and the
Mm.
word would be asked from something legal to
Right.
totally different to it. So
Right.
it's contextual. Keep in mind that the bottom line is understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's the reason students to read as much of the content as possible, and that is not to make them familiar with the language. It is just to so that the decoding part of the language becomes so a common mistake that a lot of students make is that they confined to only one genre of reading. So there, what students can do is keep yourself interacted with different material. For example, articles from different subjects, maybe history, maybe politics, because it is going to give you an overall information about different aspects, different fields, and all, because you never know what kind of an RC would. Like if I talk about myself, my background has been of commerce, right? I have done my grad, post grad, my education from economics. That is my major subject. So for me, if an RC comes, let's say from the physics background, it will be very difficult for me to decode it because that is something that does not fall in my interest. So for art, for that matter, even for the entire verbal part, you're not about different field, your interest is very, very important. That plays a very vital role, right? So if I'm not wrong, you're more
Yes,
experienced.
economy.
Right.
Now, if we have read both of these articles in
Mm-hmm.
newspaper, the stories in newspapers, we must have an idea that what India is going through the economic phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
In particular, so we will be able to relate better with an article that is based on economics.
Right.
That is the whole purpose of reading.
Right.
That is exposure.
Right, absolutely right, sir. So talking about the CLAT exam, so I feel the biggest advantage that the CLAT students have is that there are three sections. First is logical reasoning, then they have legal reasoning, then they have the VARC section. So in all of these three sections, they get a lot of content to read. Right. So in VARC they have RCs, and then in legal reasoning also they're given proper case studies that they're supposed to solve. So if they're preparing for the RC portion, they automatically are preparing for these two aspects as well, because it is all about reading, it is all about contemplating, like we just discussed. So, sir, what according to you, another important law exam that we have is for ALET, right? ALET is conducted to get admissions into the UG and PG courses under NLU Delhi. So, according to you, what is the major difference in the verbal section for CLAT and ALET, or are both of them same, or the difficulty level is same for both of them?
Fundamentally, they are the same because if you have a strong base, if you have a strong foundation in your verbal section,
Mm-hmm.
you can construct any kind of building, right?
Right,
So
right.
fundamentally, they are the same. But if you have a breakup of these sections, or if you go into details of
Mm-hmm.
what comes in ALIT and what comes in CLAT, uh, CLAT is, or CLAT, what you call, okay, it has more of RCs. And
Right.
whatever questions are there, whether they are of critical reasoning or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they are based on your RCs, right? Reading comprehension passages.
Right.
The ALET exam, along with your RCs,
Mm-hmm.
you also get direct grammar-based questions. You get a lot of vocab-based questions. You can be asked synonyms, antonyms, right? So
Right.
that is the major difference. But again, I would say that if you have a strong foundation, if you have a strong base, so don't bother about these things that you have more of words or vocab-based questions. It's not going to be a problem.
Right, right, right. So you have to prepare English as a whole, not just focus on one particular aspect. So a question, we have gotten a question in the comment section. It says, how to make vocabulary strong? So what would be your answer to the question? Like, how can somebody enhance their vocabulary according to you?
Okay, now, I always suggest my students that you have a newspaper in front of you, any English newspaper, may it be HT, Indian Express, The Hindu, right? There's this front page in front of you, right? On that front page, on the top of the page, you have the most important story that is called the lead story.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is from economics, sometimes from politics, sometimes even from sports.
Right.
It is the most important story. So if India had won the match against England, then it would have been from sports, but sadly we lost the match, right? So it was the second lead, not the first lead.
Right.
So every day, it is not about bulk, it is about quality.
Mm-hmm.
You pick one story that is 400 to 500
Mm-hmm.
words, the lead story,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, and then instead of reading the whole front page or many
Mm-hmm.
pages, you just read the story once,
Mm-hmm.
underline the difficult words,
Mm-hmm.
find out their meanings, and read it again. That is my way. Read it twice. Rather than reading more and more stories, read
Right.
that story twice, because only then you would have familiarity not just with language, but
Right.
also with uh, current affairs. What is happening around?
Right. Right.
About economics, about say politics or and other fields. So and at the bottom of the front page, sometimes you have a soft story that is
Mm-hmm.
called anchor.
Right.
You can also read that if you have time, but never miss your lead story. It works like compound interest. You
Right.
start it today, you do it for 30 days, and
Right.
you feel the difference. Rather
Absolutely.
than reading five stories, read just two, right? And
Right.
then read them twice, not once.
Right.
So that will build up your vocab. And mind it that nothing is going to happen in a fortnight,
Right.
right?
Right.
Nothing is going to happen in a fortnight, but by and by, you would get the hang of it.
Expect the results overnight or over a week. It is a gradual process.
They
And
say Rome was not built in a day.
yeah,
So is Clat, A-Lit.
right, exactly. Apart from that, because we have a question vocabulary itself. So one thing that you can do, there are two, three methods that you can use to enhance your vocabulary. The first one is called the root method, wherein you understand the root of a particular word, and then you can just basically build words from that one particular root word just by adding suffix and prefix to it. That can be one method of doing it. Another, I mean, by that method, at least if you don't know the exact meaning of it, you might get a little bit of an idea that this word would be related to something like that. So you can guess the meaning that way, right? Apart from that, of course, you can the word tree, word family method, wherein you're picking up just one particular word and add all the plausible synonyms related to that one particular word in a single sheet. So that way you're revising multiple words at the same time. And like Sir said, it is all about you reading. Reading is very, very important. Not reading, but also retaining. Reading a word is one thing, but memorizing it and then using it correctly at the right time, at the right place is also extremely, extremely equally important, rather. So that is something that you can do.
And I just
Okay, so
want to add something to it.
sure,
That always be very careful of the context in which a word has been used. You
right.
cannot know, nobody can know all the words, the definition of all the words. So the
Mm-hmm.
best way is to locate the meaning in the context, right? I'll give you an example. Say, so Vagisha has a lot of idlis in her breakfast, right? If not a lot, two idlis in her breakfast.
Right.
But she says that in my lunch, however, is an eclectic of pan-Indian dishes. If a student who does not know the meaning of eclectic, he or she locate it. How used. Now you say that I have in my breakfast, however, or but I my lunch is an eclectic mix. When you have used but or however, it means you are going to say something totally different from what you have said. So
Right.
get the cue, get the hint. So
Right.
what can eclectic mean?
Mhm.
If it is plain before, it is plain here, it
Mhm.
is going to be colorful later.
Literally. Yeah, absolutely right, sir. So it's common sense plays a important role that a
Of
lot of people are accessible to exam because they're like going all red with the kind of questions that they get. So yeah, using your common sense, being smart is extremely. It's obviously not possible for a person the words in the entire world. Like for example, for me, my mother tongue is Hindi, but I don't even know the words for Hindi. Forget English. So it is a mixture of smart work as well as hard work that results in your in a good result or in your selection, right? Okay, so that was about class. So let's talk IPM. Let me brief you people about what is somebody who does not know about it. IPM stands for Integrated Program in Management. It is an integrated 5-year course that is offered by the IIMs. Not all the IIMs, there are 5 IIMs associated with it, but probably by future we will have more IIMs associating. So it gives you a BBA and an MBA course compiled together. So this IPM course, it has two entrance tests. It is called IPM and JIPMAT. Okay, program in management admission test and joint integrated program in management admission test. There are two entrance tests. So IPMAT is a student might take to get admissions into IIM. Okay, so the IPMAT exam is conducted separately by I and IIM Rohtak. They have a minute difference in the pattern. And then for JIPMAT, you get admissions to IIM Jammu and IIM Bodh Gaya and also IIM Ranchi. So this entire course is called IPM. Not a lot of students know about this particular course because majority of people tend to do their BBA XYZ college and then they would appear for the CAT exam and then they would go ahead and MBA. So IPM is also a very good course. Right now, like I mentioned, IPMAT and JIPMAT. So the major difference between the exam conducted by IIM Indore and for IPMAT is that just a little bit of variation in the quant section. Section pretty much remains the same for all of these three exams, right? And they are extremely important exams for the people who are targeting management. Apart from IPMAT, there are also two other exams, two other entrance tests that are conducted by really good B schools. First one we have Symbiosis entrance test, which is conducted by Symbiosis Business School, and then we have NPAT conducted by NMIMS, that is Nasi Munji Institute of Management. So all of these are the entrance tests that give you admission to various B schools at the undergraduate level. So again, because they are beasts and they are pretty reputed, they have good placement records with them. So their verbal ability section is also pretty challenging. So sir, let's discuss a little bit about that. What according to you is the level of the verbal for the IPMAT and the JIPMAT exam?
I think it is moderate. Expect it to be very easy
Mm-hmm.
in IPMAT or JIPMAT, but
Mm-hmm.
the students must understand that they want to know that if you have a solid foundation and they can only through RCs. That is very important. Reading comprehensions.
Mm-hmm.
Because can't pose 40, 50, or 30 questions just on vocab.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to be dictionaries or encyclopedias.
Right.
They want to know your understanding. So RCs, they are very important, fundamental, essential.
Right,
Yeah.
right. RCs are challenging, sir, and we do get a lot of queries about RCs, like, how should we do it? How can I improve my speed in reading RCs? Or, I mean, basically, there are different way. I quite honestly feel that every person has to identify for themselves how they can solve an RC, because let's say one trick works for me, it definitely not like it would work definitely for somebody else as well, right? It has to be identified by the student itself that what works for me. So I was asked to give a general feedback or a general guideline for to the students while attempting RCs or preparing for RCs. But that, how should they go ahead with the RC portion, and how can they speed increase speed of maybe solving an RC?
Okay, now there are two things involved. One is general guideline for doing RC, and the second is speed. Let's talk of the general guideline first. So I suggest my students be very alert right from the beginning. You read one or two lines, tell yourself what it is about, which field it is taken from yourself. You read the next two lines, tell yourself what it is saying, right? You, after reading the whole passage, you must be in a position to it to your friend. Don't do it in the exam, but yes, you must be in a position. So keep telling yourself what it is, what are the examples that the author has cited, right? And what is his argument? What is the main idea? Keep telling yourself. You don't have to do it very loud. You don't have to disturb others. But yes, keep it doing in your mind. So you need to be very, very right from the outset, right? If it is passive reading, might read the whole passage, but you may not even understand 10% of it. It is passive. Your mind is sleeping while you are reading, right? Your mind is somewhere else. So it should be active reading. You should read with a questioning mind. Question what it is about. What examples here is given? What is he trying to say? What is he trying to prove? What is he trying to justify? That kind of reading. And now the second one, speed. So if I say that 250 words a minute, an ideal speed, or 300 words, say, a minute is an ideal speed. So what the student would do, they would keep in mind and they would try to read a 500 words passage in 2 minutes.
Right.
That is the way. Don't go by the ideal speed formula. Because if you try to force speed on RCs, your comprehension will be zero.
Right.
So let speed come out of the RCs. So it has to develop over a period of time. It has to develop with practice. You don't have to force speed. If you suppose you're doing RCs and your speed is 100 words a minute,
Right.
and for a 500 word passage, you take say 5 minutes just for reading, not for.
Right.
So yes, that may not be considered in terms
Right.
of appearing for exam, CAT, IPM, or whatever.
Right.
But don't force that speed, right? If your understanding is fine, the speed will naturally increase with time, with practice. It would take weeks, it would take months,
Right.
but don't force it.
Right.
Am I
Right.
clear?
I'm sorry.
Am I clear?
Yeah, most definitely. So basically, a very huge misconception that a lot of students have about these entrances is that the entrances are conducted or are held their knowledge or to test their output, which is not right. It is basically a test of their perseverance. It's basically a test of their continuity, their regularity towards something. If it were a test knowledge or aptitude, then 85% of the people who actually qualify any entrance test would not have been the average students at their school or the graduation. So that particular ideology that usually people have will have very wrong, it needs to be corrected. So basically, whenever you're for any competitive exam, let's say that talk about IP math, since we're talking about that, the exam usually takes place in from the month of July, June, July, or August. So if I talk right now, it is November. So you have around 7-8 months for preparation, which is a lot of time, right? So in these 7-8 months, if you are being consistent, just giving say 2 to 3 hours regularly, irrespective of it being your birthday, irrespective of it being a party, being a New Year, Christmas, Diwali, whatever, irrespective, just able to give 2 to 3 hours on a regular basis, it is going to be very beneficial, and you will see the results. This brings me to another very important aspect. Okay, before that, we have a question on aspect, like on which topics. So topics, Reena, there are no specific topics or list of can give you that you can read on. Basically has to cover it, being psychology, it being history, it being culture, it being economics, physics, any article that you can read or editorial that you can read that can give you an overall information about everything, right? Don't just confine yourself in your comfort. Something you feel comfortable reading, move out of that comfort zone and keep giving yourself variety of content to read, right? That you would want to add.
I have already mentioned that the first thing is always read the lead story in newspaper.
Mhm.
And yes, if newspaper is the main source that you have for verbal section, and that is the best source, can be the main source, right? Uh, After a few months, you can jump to other pages, right? Say page,
Mhm.
sports page,
Mhm.
editorials, right? One editorial each. No need to read four editorials. No need to read four quotes
Right.
columns.
Right.
Just one column each day.
Mhm.
All I focus is on consistency.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Even if you less, your quality should be good.
Right. Absolutely. So quality over quantity.
Yes.
Okay. And sir, what is the significance of vocab in IP MAT exam? Vocab is important for any exam. It is basically the backbone of the VARC section. If you talk about RCs, or we let's say sentence completion, or analogies, or any of such questions, vocabulary is extremely important, because only then will you be able to understand. So if we talk about IP Math, it is conducted by IIM Indore as well as Rohtak. The aptitude exam is followed by an interview. After you've qualified for your this aptitude exam, you will for an interview also. And in an interview, your vocabulary is the most important thing, because you will be expressing use your ideas, talking about yourself in the language. So knowing the exact word that can express your emotions in the most appropriate manner is something that you should be good at. So yes, vocabulary is extremely IP MAT exam, or for that matter, any exam that you're preparing. It is the basics, the basis, the backbone of the exam. Okay, so another important topic that I want to talk about, because we were talking about consistency and we were talking about slowly progressing. I would want, now has become a among students that they are petrified mocks. Like we keep on motivating students that they should on a regular basis appear for mocks, but they have this strategy, their cooked up story कि नहीं मैम जब सिलेबस खत्म हो जाएगा हम तब मॉक्स देना शुरू, जब एक महीना रह जाएगा एग्जाम में हम तब मॉक्स देना शुरू करेंगे. So could you please tell our lovely audience essential part, the importance of giving mocks or appearing for mocks?
I think in your preparation,
Mm-hmm.
talks are something of great importance. They are vital, right? So if you keep on delaying them, keep on postponing them, you won't be a topper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So take as many marks as you can. They are the key to your preparation. These things, these things are basics, right? The vocab questions, the other questions, but mock as it is just like an actual test, they would really prepare you, they would give you a sense of how to attempt, right? Then you would develop a familiarity with the test.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take marks the test would look like totally alien to you.
Right.
The time, given the time frame and the pressure,
Right.
you won't be familiar with it, and then this blunder.
Okay, so before we move forward, guys, the people watching this, please make sure that you like the session. If you're finding it useful, share it with your friends so that even they can take advantage of the information that you're getting here, and subscribe to our channel for the upcoming notifications as well as the sessions that very promptly actively working towards, right? So talking about mocks, like you rightly said, sir, it basically gives you a replica of the day of the exam day. Another important thing that I would want to add to what has said, make sure that you are appearing in the actual mode of the exam. Like, for example, the CLAT exam, take pen and paper, make sure that you're appearing for the mocks in the same manner. And let's say the IP other exams, they take place in an online mode. So make sure that you're appearing for them in the online mode so that you don't get a feeling on the day of exam. It's very, very important. Sir, now that we've mentioned about giving mocks, let's talk about another important aspect, analysis of mocks. So, how, according to you, should the students go ahead and analyze the mocks that they are getting? Because this is learning, knowing our strengths and weakness, equally important part as equal as appearing for the mocks, right? So, what is the analysis part?
I think analysis is again, it is important. Why? Because you go on taking marks the first day, second day, third day for 15 days, but your performance not improve as much as you want if you don't analyze your weak
Mm-hmm.
points. So first take a mark, you note down your weak points. Tell yourself those weak, explain yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Loudly if you can. If you are in a closed yourself, where I am weak in, where I'm making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't tell yourself, then the whole purpose would not be, I think, fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, without analyzing your mistakes, bring yourself without being aware of them, and again focus on quantity rather than on
Right.
quality, but not to.
Right, right. Absolutely right, sir. So mocks act as a sense of assessment for you. It is very important for you to know where you stand. That is why here at HitBullsEye we do encourage the students to start giving the mock on the day that they've thought मुझे ये paper देना है, मुझे इसकी, तो make sure that आप उस दिन एक या दो mocks initial period of you appearing for the mocks. Don't keep a lot of expectations out of it. You are going to take a lot of time. You are going to maybe make a lot of mistakes. You might not even be able to complete all the questions. Don't focus on the all the time management, at least in the initial 2 months of you appearing for the mocks. Just give mocks for the sake of knowing your strength and the weakness area. So any exam that we talk about, whether it is IPMAT, whether it is CLAT, ALET, any exam, they have three type of questions, right? We have easy questions, we have medium questions, and then we have difficult questions. Now this criteria of questions would vary from person to person. For example, one particular question can be easy for me, it might be difficult for sir, because it varies. So doing mock analysis give you that understand this particular topic is easier for me and this particular topic is difficult for me. And also in all of these exams that I've mentioned, we do have negative marking. So why to attempt a question when you know that it is going wrong? So appearing for mock give you that clarity, help you understand that okay, मुझे ये question attempt करना है, मुझे question attempt नहीं करना है. And eventually when you are in for mocks, you know okay, okay, this falls under my strength, this falls under my weakness, start working on your weakness part. Okay, because strength to hey, focus on the weakness part, the topics that you think you can improve by working a little bit on them. Start from the very basics of it, right? And then slowly they will turn into your strength. And eventually when you have around, let's say, 1 or 2 months left for the exam, like it is for the CLAT people out there, so what you people can do is by that time, when you have just 1 to 2 months left for your exam, stop focusing on your strength, on your weakness, and start working on your strength, and then focus on time management, focus on the accuracy of the content, how much time are you taking solving one particular question, and so on. Right, sir?
Right.
I Yeah. Okay, so now that we have covered IPM, another very IPM, set, and NPAT, the different entrances to different B schools, let's talk about the new baby and the last topic for today's session, that is CUET. I talked about it in the initial part of the session as well, that is University Entrance Test. This particular exam is introduced this year, only took place for the very first time this year. This exam is going to act as a common entrance test to the various undergraduate courses as well as colleges falling under the umbrella of Delhi University and other central universities as well. So CUET is an extremely important exam, and because it is a relatively new exam, not a lot of students are aware about it, right? So we basically have talk on the basis of the exam that took place this year, because we are expecting a couple of changes in the year 23, and we'll keep you posted for that. Talking about the previous exam that took place in the month of July, August this year. So we basically have three sections. One section is the language section, where you're supposed to choose one particular language for yourself. It can be English, Hindi, or any active language that you're working towards. And then section two with the domains. The subject hopefully have in your 12th standard right now, they will only be the domains. And then the GT part, that is the general test part. So focusing on the VARC section. So, sir, what is the level of VARC or the English section for the CUET exam?
You've called it a baby. I think it is a giant, great country for many, right?
Right,
But with the right approach, we can make a nice, cute baby out of it,
right.
right? So, yes, the level of English I think is moderate. It's not very difficult, but then again, we can't lose our guard.
Right.
We can never lose your guard. So be very alert, and yes, again, like other exams, you have RCs in your CUET exam, right? And then you have questions based on vocab, synonyms, antonyms. Then you have your analogies, word usage, even some questions on grammar-based questions.
Mhm.
So, if a baby, never treat it like a baby, right? So, have a right approach, be very serious towards it,
Mhm.
and you would you would crack it.
Right, right, absolutely rightly said. And also I came across a couple of students who are yet to appear 23. They were like, अरे मैम 22 का एग्जाम तो बहुत easy था, हमें ज्यादा मेहनत करने की जरूरत नहीं. And don't be in that illusion.
Yes,
You never know when the tables have turned and the exam would come out to be
yes.
difficult. Okay. So that brings us to the end of the session, guys. We have covered major undergraduate exams today. We tried to explain to you the significance of different exams, whether in the field of law or in the field of management, right? And I hope you would pay attention to the words that Sir have mentioned today, the things that he has spoken about, so that you can strengthen your RC section, your vocabulary portion. And English is not just your aptitude tests. You have GEs, you have PRs, you have VAT, that is writing ability test. You have so many other aspects where English play a very crucial role. So start working on your English from now on, and read as much as you can. Read useful content. Right? So any parting words from your end, sir?
Okay, never focus on quantity, always focus on quality. That's it.
Right, right, absolutely. Quality over quantity always. Right. So thank you guys. I know not a lot of students were able to join us live today because you have your classes. But if you see this video later, if you have any questions, any queries, please feel free to post them in the comment section. And we at HitBullsEye will be proactive to answer all your queries and be there to support you throughout. Thank you so much. Have a lovely
Thank you
week,
so
all of
much.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
And till the next BBKP session. By then, stay tuned. Bye bye.
Bye.